I certainly did get my money's worth out of this jacket, didn't I? But more importantly, welcome to the Mask Fan Attic, where you never know what kind of weird and non-human and disturbing, freakish, mysterious things you're going to find. For example, you just found me. For another example, this week's mask. You know, kids, by 1944, Hollywood movie makers were using masks for the mummy in the mummy movies rather than scratch-built makeup freshly built up for each day's shooting. Lon Chaney Jr. wore such a mask in the 1944 mummy sequel, The Mummy's Curse. Yes, indeed. And one of those masks, worn by Chaney, is said to be the last surviving actual example of the makeup artistry handiwork of the great Jack Pierce, the guy who was the Universal Studios makeup man back in the 30s and 40s and designed most of the classic Universal monsters. That mask was preserved by Bob Burns, I believe, and is said to be on display at a museum in Seattle, of all places. You would think Egypt, wouldn't you? Yeah. Or the British Museum, maybe, but no, apparently it's on display at a museum in Seattle. A recreation of that mask was done in the year 2014 by an artist named Scott Doring. This is that mask, The Mummy's Curse. Now, The Mummy's Curse is kind of the name of the mask, but really the name is Charis. That's K-H-A-R-I-S, Charis, because that was the name of the mummy, you see. So actually, people refer to these masks as by the names of the films, but actually Charis is the character. So this is Charis the Mummy, as portrayed by Lon Chaney in 1944, wearing a mask by Jack Pierce. This 2014 recreation by Scott Doring is, I think, excellent. If you've seen the movie, you may agree, you may recognize how very close this looks to the one in the film, worn by Mr. Chaney. And sadly, there are only 4 of these that were made. And then the artist, Scott Doring, decided he didn't like it and he thought he could do it better at some other point in history, so that was the end of that. There were no more. There are only 4 in the known universe. And this is one of them, and you get to see it because you had the courage and foresight and initiative to come up here to the Mask Fan Attic to look for these creepy and horrible things that Dr. Lady likes to show you every week in the Mask Fan Attic. Look at that eye. Is that a great eye? It's a cool eye, I think. Now again, only 4 of these made in 2014. It's a very thick casting. They're made of high quality latex. The only markings, there's a little SD on the inside, which I'm just going to go out on a limb here and guess that stands for Scott Doring. Just my brilliant deductive reasoning at work there. But great mask. Now you can probably tell the hair isn't actual hair glued on and then schmutzed with paint. The hair is simply sculpted in as part of the sculpture. And normally I don't like sculpted hair on masks. I like real hair glued on there. But in the case of the mummy, his hair was so caked with dirt and mud and gunk and grime that this looks pretty much like it looked in the movie. You know what I mean? It's pretty close, even though you can't see individual hairs, because in the movie there's so much glop in his hair it almost looks all caked up, stuck together and plastered down, very much like this nifty mask by Scott Doring. There have been a lot of masks of Charis over the years, of course, including several by Down Post Studios. And, well, it's a popular character because it's a really scary mummy. When I was a little kid watching monster movies, when I'd stay up late at night and watch old monster movies, I think of the old school, the old guard monsters. I think Lon Chaney's Charis was the one that was the scariest to me because he seemed like unstoppable and you couldn't reason with him, and no matter how fast you would run from him, he would still be right behind you. Now, you know, in later years you may recognize that's due to the miracle of cheating with the editing, but when you're a kid and see that, you just think, wow, he's always right there on somebody's trail and he's really scary and unstoppable. And anyway, Lon Chaney as Caris as rendered by Scott Doring in 2014. And that's about all I have to say about that particular mummy. Hope you like it. And now I'm going to go try selling it to the British Museum for millions. See you next week.